Yeah, let's talk a little bit about what makes you on the app, and maybe how you interact with it that might be different from someone like Bella Thorne interacting with it. So can you talk a little bit about what it's like being gender non-conforming, non-binary, trans on OnlyFans? Is there a large audience base that is open to that? Is it a welcoming place? Are you finding maybe a little bit of, maybe it's not, has it been built for all kinds of people, are you finding?
I know some people who are guys that are content creators, and they're few and far between, and typically they seem to be less successful, but that's not 100% the case. I know plenty that are like in the top 10% or whatever. And I've also seen plenty of non-binary people, but at least from what I have seen of those people, and I guess I kind of do this myself, I kind of do a performance of feminine gender for the most part when I'm making sexual content, because that's, if people are looking for a body like mine, they're probably expecting some level of femininity along with it. And so far that's been fine. I haven't had really any like dysphoric type of issues with that personally. And it's kind of just like, this is what people are expecting from my body type, and that's, I'm performing anyway, so why not perform gender at the same time?
That makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And then how would you talk about maybe being Black on the app? Does at all race factor into your experience so far? Is it a very white audience? Is it very diverse?
Well, I will say, to start with, most of the people who are subscribed do not have profile pictures, so I don't know the diversity of my audience at all. But with the way that porn is categorized, race is always a factor to some degree. I mean, there are plenty of people who are probably indifferent, and they probably care more about the body type than specific colors and features. But there are people who are specifically looking for, like, light-skinned Black girl as a porn category, essentially. Mm-hmm. And I guess I haven't noticed that in particular concerning me, at least not as far as anybody in my audience has expressed. But I'm sure that it is present. I just haven't been made aware of it directly yet.
Interesting. Okay. I'm fascinated by this whole conversation, because OnlyFans is something I've heard a lot about as well, especially jumping into the YouTube scene. It was kind of been like a running joke that like, oh, and then you start the OnlyFans account. Mm-hmm. And it never actually, I think you might be the first person I know personally to actually jump in and actually get your feet wet with this. So I'm just fascinated on a personal level as well. So I guess my last question for you for this segment is, what are your goals with this? Is this do you consider it a hobby or an art form? Is it a gig for a couple extra bucks? Is it a career change? Like, would this be something you'd be interested in pursuing long term and growing in? Like, how do you see this playing out in your future?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. I mean, originally I joined it primarily because I was like, hey, I have been staying at home for a while and I realize that I like it, but I also want to make money. Like, I don't want to be constantly broke. So it was originally just like, hey, make some cash on the side. And then I started doing it and I was like, I enjoy this. I like this. This is fun. And so I would like to get better at it. I would like to continue to pursue it. I would like to, look into other avenues, maybe join other similar platforms. Because, as we may talk about later, the website OnlyFans has its issues. And there are people who have left the website for other websites because of those issues. But overall, my experience has been positive, and I'd like to grow my audience from that. I'd like to make more money off of that if I can.
That's awesome. We do have a little bit of time. I would love to hear a little bit about what these particular platform related issues are. I know we are going to get into the whole Bella Thorne thing, as well as the fact that sex workers on this app have been, and other apps have been waving the flag a little bit and saying, hey, as soon as this becomes mainstream, as soon as it becomes respectable, like, we're going to get kicked off. Can we make sure that doesn't happen? But are there individual, like, platform specific issues that you're seeing or that you've heard other creators talk about?
For one thing, it's a website and it's not an app.
Okay.
And that just has so many, because everybody, I mean, maybe it's just me, but who sits on their computer to watch porn? Like, you've got a computer in your hand. You use that. So when you have to use a website, it's definitely frustrating with notifications. I have to constantly be like check, like, I have like a link on my homepage on my phone to the website, so I can check it over and over again all day to make sure that nobody's DM'd me, to make sure that I didn't get a tip that I didn't know about or something like that. And the website will notify me via email if I get a new subscriber or if I got a tip, but sometimes it doesn't do it right away. And there are some things, or like, it doesn't notify me if I get a comment. So there's some things that I just wish that there was a better notification system for. And then there's just the fact that the website itself can just be glitchy sometimes. Like, sometimes sometimes I just have trouble even getting on it, or it's really slow or something like that. But yeah. Interesting.
I totally assumed that it would have been an app. Like, that makes more sense than a website. That's interesting. Okay. Well, more power to them. Hopefully they jump on that, though, and make it a little bit more accessible to people who maybe don't have access to a laptop or a computer.
Well, I will say, one of the reasons that I have heard that it is not an app is because if they made it an app, then they would get charged more, because it's an app that makes money. And if they get charged more, then they will have to charge the users more. So it
does slice up the pie a little bit differently, but it also just complicates things around, downloading content and like possession of that content. And, there are all these like really complex things that go into it. But it is surprising, at least in one way, which is something that we've kind of touched on. But OnlyFans is kind of different than conventional porn in a lot of ways, because of those constant updates and because of that like connection and relationship with the performer. I don't mean to overly compare it to escort work, but it is maybe different than like conventional studio production acting in that way, because you are able to like work directly with the consumer and provide services that are, well outside of, this is what I wanted to create, this is what I think is sexy, this is what I'm now going to sell you. You can actually, have, not just bespoken porn, but porn of like really different qualities and stripes and different sort of role play things and all of these different complexities. So yeah, I think that a native app could actually facilitate that really well. And I wouldn't be surprised as it continues to grow as a platform if we don't end up seeing more of that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And that is one of the things that I really like about using OnlyFans, is that it is so like, you have a connection with your subscribers, as opposed to just following a page and just taking whatever they give you. The main draw is the ability to ask for what it is that you want to see. And I will say again, I've been a little bit frustrated that some of my audience isn't giving me a whole lot of feedback, but it's like, well, if you guys are still subscribed, even if you're not giving me feedback, obviously whatever I'm putting out is good enough, but I wish you'd be a little bit more, forthcoming with the feedback, but whatever,
Yeah, no news is good news is a truism, but not so much when you're creating content, especially such personal stuff. You're kind of like, put myself out here, guys. Give me something to work with here.
And again, especially because I don't watch a lot of porn. So I'm kind of like, is this good? Does anybody like this?
am I doing porn?
Yeah.
All right, that is fascinating, and I'm going to be chewing on that for a while. Now, I'm in the middle of a budgeting session like an ongoing budgeting session at work, and so now my brain is like trying to crunch numbers about, well, if you pay more for the app, but then more people sign up because it's an app, then when does it balance out? But that's a terribly boring conversation for a radio show. So let's continue on.